By now you must have all have heard about the Haranir customization, the data mine models. Everyone is talking about how they're almost certainly the next playable race. This is already super old news. I'm not here to talk about all that and why they may be the next Elite race because of that. Here I want to cover the data mine, the Rootland zone. I want to cover the new data mine Haranir information from the upcoming patches and dialogues where Orvenia, the lead Haranir, talks about how her people came from a different place on Azeroth, how they had followed the goddess Azeroth, and how Azeroth revealed a secret to her that no one would understand. This is almost certainly 11.2 content, so who are the Haranir, are they really the next Elite race, and what do we know? If you want to get Dragonflight or anything else Warcraft related, Gamigo has some excellent deals that you can check out with my link below. Best of all, you can get software, gift cards, a bunch of games at below market prices. On top of that, you can also use my code DORON to get yet another discount, so make sure to check out my link below and grab some amazing deals at Gamigo. So there is no way you haven't heard about the Haranir that Blizzard later for some reason renamed to Haranir, and literally everyone and their mother has been talking about them as a new playable race. The main reason was because we had data mined an insane number of customizations for seemingly an NPC race, but I just wanna say, one of the main reasons why the Haranir seem very likely as the next playable race is the entire Valpyra scenario that you might remember from BFA. Originally, no one saw the playable Valpyra coming, but they ended up adding them as a new race mid-expansion, and the most practical reason for that is because they were literally just using a goblin rig, and for Blizzard, this isn't really much more than a reskin. I know, doesn't sound that great, but from a practical standpoint, you gotta see that it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Blizzard can literally make a huge feature that can be a big part of the upcoming announcement just by adding a different model to the rig. Why the skeleton is relevant is because with the skeleton of an already playable race, all the current armors, weapons, appearances are going to fit with barely any work. This is the main reason why the Earthen were super easy to implement as opposed to like a brand new race. Well, that is the exact same case for the Haranir, as they're literally just using a Night Elven rig, and they're in fact, by all the lore, just a different version of the Night Elves. So for the most practical reasons, this is why everyone has been talking about them being playable. I know most people want to see something cooler like the Ogres or the Naga, which I gotta say would actually be a big hype feature, but realistically, races that don't really fit the playable mold are going to be super hard to implement. Now, the other reason, and why everyone else has been talking about it, is, well, there are a few reasons. First of all, they got an insane amount of customizations, way more than any other NPC race. Now, I know you could say this for a few other NPC races in the past, but the detail for the Haranir is literally almost as close as any other allied race. Both the male and the female model have an impressive number of customizations, and other than the basic ones like the skin colors, they got quills, their hair has multiple colors with highlights, they got ear shapes, furs. The only weird part is that they currently only have 3 skin colors, but I think that is for a good lore reason that we'll get to in a bit. So the other reason everyone is also talking about this is because the Haranir are in the cinematic. They're one of the main characters in the official release cinematic, yet they are barely present in the current game with a relatively minor role that they have in the initial release storyline. The reason for that is because they're obviously going to be a major part later down the line, and this isn't my speculation at all. We've got a ton of evidence with data mine dialogues, screens, models, zones. So you definitely already heard about this by now, but I did say that Rootlands is going to be one of the new zones for the War Within. The reason we're saying this is because we data mined an internal map work in progress related to the roots of the original World 3 Luna here on Khazlagar, and the work in progress name is Rootlands. It was apparently a zone that is supposed to be between Hellafall and Ashkahet. They originally planned to have this as a zone on release, but ended up not actually doing it. Now, I did speculate that this would be happening in 11.1, as it's definitely related to Old Godblood, and that is where Xel'Det left off by the end of the initial patch, but looks like they decided to move this for 11.2. In 11.0.7 we're going to the Southern Isle. Here we data mine a splash screen that shows Orvenia, one of the major Haranir characters, meaning they're going to start setting them up even now. And we have also data mined insane dialogue, which I'll get to in a bit. Then in 11.1 we are going to Undermine, where they might get a little bit of screen time as a side questing, and in 11.1.5 we are getting something related to the horrific visions, more old god stuff with a possible return of N'Zoth. Now on the original roadmap map from the Warcraft Direct, there wasn't supposed to be a new zone in 11.2, which really caught all of us by surprise, but they actually updated the map a day later and added a new zone, which now makes it almost certain that this is going to be the Haranir zone. At this point, it's like 90% certain that this is going to be the case, because the former World 3 is obviously a big part of the storyline. Now take a look at the latest roadmap. They didn't indicate anywhere that we're getting a new race, but let's be real, I mean, if they wrote it down, it would be way too obvious. It would kinda ruin the hype and the surprise. I think realistically, we might get them in like 11.2.7, which just now says new content vaguely, which could mean we would resolve the storyline and then they would join us later down the line. However, now I want to get into the gist of the matter and something literally no one is talking about for some reason, and that is the Datamine 11.0.7 dialogue, where the lead Haranir character Orvenia talks with Magni and gives us some surprisingly crazy revelations. I got a full video on this that you can check out, where I did speculate that Azeroth may be related to Elune or possibly even be Elune in some way, but apparently Orvenia and the Haranir are following the goddess called Azeroth. They refer to Azeroth as the goddess, and this actually catches Magni by surprise, as he has no idea what she's talking about. Orvenia says that Azeroth called them from their homeland, which is not actually on Kazakar but somewhere else, and they had arrived on the goddess's command. However, Azeroth had revealed some sort of a secret to Orvenia that not even her people would understand, as she wants to reveal it to us, but in a way she can't at the moment. Now, here's what's super interesting. The Haranir are almost certainly the Dark Trolls. Dark Trolls are like a cave version of the regular trolls that later transformed into Night Elves through the Well of Eternity. They also followed the goddess that they had called Elune. However, I'm not saying Elune may be Azeroth or is really close to her, because Orvenia called her the goddess and Elune is a goddess. The reason I'm saying this is because the document told us that when the roots of the World Tree were ripped out, they healed a bit, but unknown Druidic Guardians came in from an unknown place, which by this point are almost certainly the Haranir. The thing is though, why would Azeroth call her own followers to come to this place to protect these roots? By all accounts, the roots were planted by Elune and Eonar, so this is like a half-Titan World 3. If we learned anything from the recent lore, it is that Azeroth has been trying to cleanse all corruption. She even turned Earthen into crystals when they built a world called Prison at the bottom of the Coreway. So you would imagine these worshippers would come here to remove all this clutter, not to guard these imposed roots. This is why I think Elune may be closer to Azeroth than we think, and that Azeroth may have actually wanted this World Tree to grow. Here is also the main reason why I think the Haranir are going to be playable. They're literally, by this like new lore, like God's chosen people. The only person we've known that has been following Azeroth's direct orders by now has been Magni, and we've just learned from the latest lore that these were the so-called Treygar, Earthen that Azeroth forcefully converted in her act of rebellion against the Titan Order. However, she decided to pick these Haranir guys out of all the native races on Azeroth to come and work for her and be her protectors. I'm almost certain this means that these Haranir are being set up as one of the lead races that will play a crucial role in Azeroth Awakening and everything else that will happen in the World Soul Saga. It doesn't really seem like they're just one of the random filler races with the burden they had just put on their shoulders. Orvenia is supposed to apparently reveal some massive secret Azeroth told her that no one saw coming, and this in itself should put the Haranir on the main stage. Now, when we combine this with the Night Elven skeleton, which is for practical reasons, the oddly suspicious amount of customizations for a seemingly NPC race, and the fact that they were in the official release cinematic, it really does seem like the Haranir are the next allied race that are going to add by the end of this expansion. Thank you for watching. Check out my video on the Archons, the creators of the Naru, by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Perun and Slavic mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.